We have an update, you guys. This time, the update is the Apple versus Epic, Epic versus Apple, depending on which side you're looking at, case. This is actually very interesting to look at because the case is very similar to the case that Epic has against Google, which I covered a couple months ago. But the ruling is different than the case against Google. Somehow, let's get into the article. U.S. Supreme Court has had enough of Epic versus Apple, refuses to hear appeals. Tim Sweeney, he's the guy that's in charge of Epic, says the fight to open up iOS is lost. A sad outcome for all developers. This is actually a very interesting case to really look at because, like I said, Epic had the same exact lawsuit against Android and Google, and it had the exact opposite outcome than the Apple one. Man, I'm telling you, Google, y'all should have just hired the same lawyers that Apple has. It is ridiculous how they won. The U.S. Supreme Court has ended the legal battle between Apple and Epic, for now at least, by refusing to hear either side's appeal in the long-running dispute over the iOS store policies, which it just doesn't make sense. The iOS store policies, I get you got to protect your people, but they're so overbearing. That's why I'll never own an iPhone. I'll mess around with an iPad, but I ain't messing with no iPhone. Apple has appealed against the lower court's ruling in which orders certain changes to the iOS policies, while Epic had appealed against the same court ruling that iOS policies around the distribution and monetizations were not in violation of federal antitrust laws. The Supreme Court justice gave no reason for the decisions to deny both appeals, which, they're the Supreme Court. They don't have to give a reason why they're like, nah, we're not playing around with this. And mind you, this has been in court since 2020. We're coming up on 4 years of this epic, no pun intended, battle between two titans, and especially the titans of the industry, and that's being Epic and Apple. The court battle to open iOS to competing stores and payments is lost in the United States, says Epic CEO Tim Sweeney. A sad outcome for all developers. Now the district court's injunction against Apple's anti-steering rules is in effect, and the developer can include in their apps buttons, external links, or other calls to action that direct customers to purchasing the mechanism in addition to the IPAA. Holy crap. These big words, they're breaking me. But there's more to this that I think is very interesting that Apple has yet to really put publicly, that Epic just dropped the bombshell. This is a good one, guys. While Epic may have lost their war, the ruling about Apple's anti-steering rule was the one battle it did win. So it won one of the two battles against Apple, which I don't get because, like I said, the lawsuit that they had against Google's open source. For you guys that don't know, Google will let you build apps and do whatever in Android's ecosystem, and it doesn't have to go through as many things as Apple. Apple is closed source. Unless you're working hand in hand and you get accepted by Apple, you're not getting your app out there. You're SOL. That stands for shit out of luck. Oh man, Apple has let the app developers direct users to non-iOS means of payment for content, which that was one of the big talking points, was the fact that Apple and Android take a 30% commission whenever you hit that in-app purchase. 30%. That's the sticking point, is that it really hurts the smaller app developers when they're taking 30% right off the top. It's crazy. The company has to comply with the court's rulings, but in an uprising turn of events, that has chosen to go the route of malicious compliance. Malicious compliance. Like I said, Apple didn't release this to the public. They let the app people know. Apps can now direct users outside the iOS payment ecosystem, but drum roll please. Okay. Apple is still demanding a 27% cut of any purchases. So basically what they're doing is if you hit that in-app, I want to buy it from Epic Game Store. We're just going to use this because I don't know of any smaller app. Well, anyways, you open your Fortnite app and you go to the Epic website to purchase it because you went in-app and you hit that and it redirected you. Automatically, Apple is getting a 27% cut. So from the 30% to a 27%. It just defeats the purpose. It's dumb. Apple's commission will be 27% on proceedings you earn from the sales transactions to the users for digital goods or services on your website after a link out, which a link out is where you click a link and it takes you out of said app, i.e. they tap to continue on the system disclosure sheet, provided that the sale was initiated within 7 days and the digital goods or services can be used in the app. So, like, what did Epic win here? They didn't win anything, and that's the crazy part. Yes, that does kind of make it pointless. And who's fuming? Apple filed a bad faith compliance plan for the District of Columbia's injunction, said Sweeney, and it totally undermines the order. You didn't get anywhere. You ordered, like, you went through this court order. You did all this. You jumped through hoops. You got this small little win against this fucking corporate titan. Now, mind you, they're both corporate titans. Just to have them be like, good old fuck you. And when you tap out of the screen, 27% on whatever they spend. It's just fucking insane. It's insane. Sweeney lists various issues with Apple's intended plan. He calls the 27% commission on web purchases an Apple tax, and that kills the price competition, and says Apple's made the process deliberately isolated from the usual payment system flow on iOS. This means users have to log into a separate browser session and search all over again for the digital items they want to buy. The system, as in, also serves up warnings to users that Sweeney calls a scare screen, which is the, are you sure you want to exit? You're going to leave the app. That's what a scare screen is. You have to be careful because there is malicious people out there that, you know, the scare screen does protect you from. But at the same token, it's so grimy on Apple's part that they're just, I'm telling you right now, I don't understand how people use iPhones. Like my Android, I ain't gonna lie, the camera's so much better. And text messaging, let me tell you, text messaging on the Android is so much better than an Apple. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm that asshole that's in any group chat that has the different colored text because you'll never catch me on an iPhone because the encryption services, it's just too much tech. We ain't got enough time. I'm trying to squeeze this into not 30 minutes. We're rolling. You'll never guess where this is going. Yep. The man with lots of lawyers is not going to take this lying down. Epic will contest Apple's bad faith compliance plan in the district courts. And Sweeney. Apple has made no comment on the ruling, nor has its CEO Tim Cook. It's been a long old road to get here. Epic's first filed the antitrust lawsuit in 2020 that accused Apple of operating an illegal monopoly by forcing iPhone users to install an app and making all purchases through the App Store, which typically takes 30% commission. But by the way, if it's for a subscription service and it's like an annual subscription service, it's only 15%. I'm just throwing that out there because I guarantee you somebody will be like, oh, it's not 30%. No, it's 30% on the initial buys. But if it's an annual subscription, then it's 15. In-app purchases, though, are normally 30. When it reaches court in 2021, the central antitrust accusations were rejected. But the judge did find that Apple was a breach of competition law and its refusal to let developers directly use to alternative payment systems that bypasses Apple's own. So, yes, that being said, they did do that. Epic's argument is basically that if developers can do this, that opens the door for more competition, lower prices, and a net gain for consumers. It's not just a net gain for consumers; it's also more money in the pockets of the people that develop this stuff. Whether it's Epic Games, Mojang, I don't care. Just choose some random, small company that developed an app that they're like, this is a great idea, and boom, you got more money in your pocket that allows them to develop and be more viable than what the app stores do offer right now. This ruling went through the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco last year and was mostly upheld, which led to more appeals, which has led to the Supreme Court basically saying we're done here. Which, I don't blame them. This was like that. Microsoft's acquisition of, Activision Blizzard, it dragged on, and it wasted so much taxpayers' dollars that I don't blame the Supreme Court being like, nah, fuck y'all, like, we're done with this shit. It's dumb. As far as the lawsuit goes, but this is only about the U.S. This is not only about the U.S. A new European Union law that comes into effect in March will force Apple to allow downloads from outside the App Store, while the EU is also currently engaged in an antitrust case against Apple. Again, the main focus being that developers can't directly use other payment methods. Clearly, the war of the times will wage for some time yet. So hopefully that the Europeans are going to be able to be like, no, you're screwing people over again, Apple. Because let me tell you, when it comes to any company screwing over individuals, Apple's the biggest one. A buddy of mine just said he bought one of the new Apple watches, and he spent $800 on that son of a bitch. It's a watch! Anyways, hopefully this lawsuit gains some traction over in Europe and potentially could spread to America, because it's just easier to have everything over one umbrella versus having multiple umbrellas over different countries or different regions. Even though I know they kind of do that already in some regions, China. But at the end of the day, I feel like this is a very interesting thing, because this could potentially, like this lawsuit, the Epic versus Apple and the Epic versus Google, could potentially change the entire landscape of how digital purchases are done. And it could potentially make, a more of a, how shall I put it, a competitive sphere around digital marketplaces. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this lawsuit that Epic has against Apple and Google, even though they did much better against Google than they did with Apple. But Apple probably could pay lawyers way more. Anyways, you guys, don't forget to mash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe, because every little bit helps. It really does. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you later.